If Donald Trump really ended the war with Iran, why does he have to keep announcing the ending over and over again? That is the question. Not whether there is a deal. Not whether another memorandum is being drafted somewhere in Europe. Not whether Wall Street jumps for 3 hours because traders see the word peace on a headline. The real question is this: why does the President of the United States keep declaring victory before the other side even agrees that victory exists? Because yesterday evening, June 11, 2026, Trump walked in front of the cameras and gave America the kind of announcement every market, every cable network, and every political operative was waiting for. He said the war with Iran was over. He said Iran had agreed never to have a nuclear weapon. He said America got everything it wanted. And for a few hours, the entire machine reacted exactly the way it was supposed to react. Wall Street celebrated. The Dow jumped. The Nasdaq surged. Breaking news banners flashed across every major network. Commentators began speaking in that special voice they use when they think history has just happened. Deal reached. War over. Trump wins. But then, less than 3 hours later, Iran's foreign ministry stepped forward and said something much colder, much simpler, and much more damaging. Iran had not reached a final conclusion on any agreement. Just like that, the victory lap collapsed. And here is the part that makes this story so strange. This was not the first time. Iranian media linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps reportedly counted how many times Trump had announced that a deal was close, that the war was about to end, that a breakthrough was imminent. The number was 38. Yesterday made it 39. 39 announcements. 39 almost deals. 39 moments where the world was told to look at the horizon because peace was about to arrive. So now the question is not, is this deal real? The question is, why does this keep happening? Why does Trump keep announcing victories that Iran does not confirm? Why does Iran keep allowing the drama to continue instead of shutting the door completely? Why does each side seem to need the illusion of a deal even while the actual war, the actual pressure, the actual strategic confrontation continues? And that is where this story becomes much bigger than missiles, drones, aircraft carriers, or the Strait of Hormuz. Because what is happening between the United States and Iran right now is not only a military war. It is a psychological war. It is a media war. It is a war over perception. It is a war over how ordinary Americans feel when they open their phones at midnight and see another video, another explosion, another market warning, another headline saying oil prices are rising, another image of civilians without water, another clip suggesting American power is no longer in full control. This is not just war on the battlefield. This is war inside the human mind. And right now, Iran understands something that Washington still does not seem ready to admit. In the age of social media, artificial intelligence, and total information saturation, a weaker military power does not have to defeat America's military directly. It only has to defeat America's will to keep fighting. That is the real battlefield. Not the carrier group. Not the radar system. Not the drone base. The battlefield is belief. If Iran can convince enough Americans that this war is endless, expensive, chaotic, unwinnable, and not worth the cost, then Iran does not need to destroy an American aircraft carrier. It does not need to defeat the U.S. Air Force in the sky. It does not need to match America missile for missile. It only needs to make the American public ask one question. Why are we still doing this? Once that question becomes loud enough, it moves from living rooms to polling data, from polling data to Congress, from Congress to cable news, from cable news to the White House. And then suddenly, the president who promised strength starts announcing peace deals that are not finished yet because he is no longer speaking only to Iran. He is speaking to his own exhausted public. That is cognitive warfare. And this is where Iran has been shockingly effective. Let's break this down. The first weapon is not a missile. It is not a drone. It is not a submarine or a mine, the Strait of Hormuz. The first weapon is the image. More specifically, the AI-generated image. The IRGC cyber and media networks understand that a convincing image can strike the nervous system faster than a fact check can reach the rational mind. They know that if someone is scrolling half asleep, scared, angry, and overwhelmed, an image does not have to be real to have real psychological effects. Imagine an AI-generated video of a nuclear cloud rising over an American city. Imagine a fake clip of American soldiers surrendering. Imagine manufactured footage of Iranian missiles hitting skyscrapers. Now, most people may know at some level that the video could be fake. They may even see a warning label later. They may read a fact check the next morning. But by then, the emotional impact has already happened. The fear has already entered the body. The image has already been stored in memory. The viewer has already felt, even for 2 seconds, the possibility that America may not be safe, that this conflict may escalate, that the war may come home, and that emotional residue matters. Iran does not need every American to believe the video is real. That is not the point. The point is to create a background mood, a shared national unease, a sense that things are slipping, a sense that this war is bigger, darker, and more dangerous than the government admits to. That is how cognitive warfare works. You do not need to convince everyone of a lie. You only need to make enough people uncertain about the truth. And once uncertainty spreads, political pressure follows. A fake image creates fear. Fear creates doubt. Doubt creates public pressure. Public pressure reaches Congress. Congress pressures the president. The president goes on television or social media and announces another breakthrough. Iran denies final agreement. The cycle restarts. That is not random. That is a feedback loop. And Iran is exploiting it. This is why traditional government communication struggles to respond. A press release cannot compete with fear. A Pentagon statement cannot erase an image already burned into someone's nervous system. A late fact check cannot fully undo an emotional first impression. The fake image wins the first battle because it arrives before the truth has its shoes on. And once the psychological atmosphere changes, every real event becomes easier to frame against America. That brings us to the second weapon, the middle of the American public. In political science, there is an idea that elections and major public debates are often decided not by the people at the extremes, but by the people in the middle. The committed supporters on each side are already fixed. You can shout at them for 10 years and they will not move. The real battle is over the people who are uncertain, tired, distracted, worried about money, worried about gas prices, worried about rent, worried about their kids, and not deeply ideological about foreign policy. Those people decide whether a war can continue. Iran knows it cannot persuade the most aggressive pro-war voters. Those voters will support escalation no matter what. Iran also does not need to persuade the people who opposed the war from day one. They are already there. The target is the middle. The people who might say, I do not like Iran, but why are we spending so much on this? The people who might say, I support the troops, but I do not want another endless Middle East conflict. The people who might say, if oil prices keep going up and the markets keep shaking, what exactly are we winning? That is the audience Iran wants to move. And Iran does not need to turn them into activists. It only needs to make them uncomfortable enough that politicians start feeling heat. How do you move those people? You show them the cost. You show gas prices rising. You show markets reacting. You show images of civilians suffering. You show every American mistake, every damaged water facility, every civilian hardship, every criticism from a European ally, every hesitation from a senator, every moment where Trump looks like he is trying to escape his own war. You make the war feel expensive. You make it feel chaotic. You make it feel endless. You make it feel unwinnable. That is how the middle shifts. And once the middle shifts, the political foundation under the war begins to crack. This is why Trump's approval on the Iran conflict matters. If the number is sitting near his base, that means he has not expanded support beyond the people who were always going to support him. The middle has not joined him. The middle is drifting away. That is dangerous for any president. A war can survive criticism from the opposition. It cannot survive the quiet withdrawal of the middle. And that is exactly what Iran appears to be targeting. Now let's talk about the third weapon, framing. This one may sound academic, but it is incredibly important. In politics, events do not speak for themselves. They are framed, they are packaged, they are given meaning. The same event can look completely different, depending on the frame placed around it. If American forces shoot down Iranian drones, Washington frames it as self-defense and regional stability. Iran frames it as illegal aggression and American militarization of international waters. Same event, two realities. For decades, the United States has been very strong at episodic framing. That means it tells the story of war through specific daily events. Today we hit this target. Today we destroyed this radar system. Today we intercepted this drone. Today we protected this ship. It creates the feeling of momentum, control, and precision. But episodic framing has a fatal weakness. If your story is built day by day, then one bad day can destroy the story. One mistake can overpower 10 successful strikes. One image can wipe out a week of official messaging. That is exactly what happens in the social media age. Every tactical error becomes a strategic information event. One bomb hits the wrong place. One civilian facility is damaged. One water supply is disrupted. One tanker crew is caught in crossfire. One child appears on video without clean drinking water. And suddenly, the entire American frame collapses. The government says, "We are conducting precision operations." The image says, "Children do not have water." Which one do people remember? The image. Always the image. That is the weakness Iran exploits. America may win the military exchange, but lose the emotional exchange. It may destroy the radar system, but lose the story. It may claim tactical success, while Iran turns one mistake into a symbol of American brutality. That is how a weaker power fights a stronger one. Not by matching its military force, but by magnifying its errors. And this is why the America is winning militarily argument, while Sirius does not fully answer the problem. Yes, America has the most powerful military in the world. Yes, American aircraft carriers can project force across the globe. Yes, American precision weapons can hit targets with devastating accuracy. Yes, CENTCOM can destroy Iranian air defense systems, drone command units, radar networks, and military sites in a single operation. Yes, a naval blockade can damage Iran's economy. All of that is true, but none of it automatically solves the political problem. Military power only decides a war if the political system remains willing to use that power until the end. And that is the part Iran is attacking. If America's military is powerful, but the American public grows tired, the war becomes politically unstable. If Iran's economy is suffering, but Iran's leadership believes American will is collapsing faster than Iranian endurance, Iran may choose to hold out. If Trump orders pressure, but then goes on television and sounds unsure whether America has the stomach for escalation, Iran hears that. So does China. So does Israel. So does Congress. So do the markets. That is the signal. Iran is not trying to beat America in a traditional war of attrition. It is trying to beat America in a political war of patience. It is trying to outlast Washington's attention span. And that brings us to the player who may be winning more than anyone else, China. Because if you only watch America and Iran, you miss the quietest and possibly most important actor in the room. China is not firing missiles. China is not sending aircraft carriers into Hormuz. China is not giving emotional speeches about victory. China is watching. And while everyone else burns money, China is collecting advantages. On television, China calls for peace. It expresses concern about instability. It talks about global trade, supply chains, and energy security. It performs the role of the responsible great power that just wants calm. But beneath that diplomatic language, Beijing is playing a much deeper game. The war disrupts global oil supply. Prices rise. Many economies suffer. In theory, that should hurt China because China imports enormous amounts of energy. But China has a special advantage, Russia. Because of Western sanctions, Russia has fewer major buyers for its energy. Europe is largely closed off. Moscow needs Beijing, and China knows it. So while the rest of the world faces higher prices, China can buy Russian energy at a discount. Russia becomes more dependent. China gains cheaper energy for its industrial machine. That gives Chinese manufacturing a cost advantage at the very moment competitors are paying more. That is not an accident. That is leverage, and China is using it ruthlessly. At the same time, Russia's dependence on China deepens. China supplies critical components. China becomes a larger share of Russia's foreign trade. Russia, once a major power trying to balance East and West, becomes more and more like a junior partner in a Chinese-led economic structure. China does not need to conquer Russia. It only needs Russia to need it. And this war helps make that happen. Then look at Iran. China does not fully abandon Iran. It provides diplomatic cover. It resists Western pressure in international forums. It criticizes escalation while avoiding direct military involvement. It gives Tehran enough support to feel that it is not isolated, but not so much support that Beijing becomes trapped in Iran's war. That is sophisticated. China gets influence without full responsibility. It protects Iran diplomatically while still presenting itself as a peacemaker. It buys discounted Russian energy while calling for stability. It watches America exhaust political capital while remaining above the battlefield. This is what real strategic patience looks like. Trump announces deal number 39. Iran denies final conclusion. Markets rise and fall. Commentators shout. Missiles move. Oil prices shake. And China sits quietly, reading the board. That may be the most important lesson of this conflict. The winner is not always the side that fires the most. Sometimes the winner is the side that lets others exhaust themselves and then collects the discount, the loyalty, the leverage, and the long-term dependency. That is why Beijing may emerge from this crisis stronger than either Washington or Tehran. Now, what should we watch next? First, watch whether Iran actually signs a memorandum of understanding. Not whether Trump says it is coming. Not whether anonymous officials hint that progress is being made. Watch whether Iran formally approves it. If Iran signs, it may mean Tehran believes its cognitive warfare campaign has already created enough pressure. It got the off-ramp it wanted without surrendering its core positions. If Iran keeps delaying, that means Tehran thinks the pressure campaign is still working and that more time can extract better terms. Second, watch Israel. Trump can offer American security guarantees. He cannot fully control Israeli decision-making. Netanyahu has his own domestic politics, his own military strategy, and his own reasons to continue pressure on Iran or Iranian-aligned groups. If Israel launches new unilateral strikes while a deal is being finalized, the whole framework can collapse instantly. That is the variable Trump cannot control. And in geopolitics, the variable you cannot control is often the one that destroys your plan. Third, watch oil prices and China's tone. If Beijing begins actively pushing Iran towards signing, not just calling vaguely for peace, that means China has probably decided it has extracted enough advantage from the chaos. It has bought enough discounted Russian energy. It has secured enough Iranian loyalty. It has watched America absorb enough political damage. Now it wants trade routes stabilized again. When China decides the chaos is no longer profitable, then peace becomes more likely. Not because Trump posted it. Not because Iran suddenly trusted America. But because the player quietly benefiting from the conflict decides that the next phase requires calm. That is how power works now. It does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it speaks softly. Sometimes it buys oil at a discount, while other countries make speeches about victory. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a president who keeps declaring a victory that has not fully materialized. It leaves us with Iran denying final agreement while continuing to exploit American political anxiety. It leaves us with a public increasingly tired of a war it does not fully understand. It leaves us with AI-generated fear moving faster than official truth. It leaves us with media frames collapsing under the weight of one bad image. It leaves us with China quietly positioning itself as the ultimate beneficiary. And it leaves us with one final question. If both America and Iran eventually sign something, and both sides claim victory, who actually wins? Trump will stand at a podium and say America forced Iran to bend. He will say the blockade worked. He will say the nuclear threat was stopped. He will say America got everything it wanted. Iran will stand before its own people and say it survived American pressure. It will say it protected its sovereignty. It will say it forced Washington to negotiate. It will say resistance did not collapse. Both sides will sell victory. Both sides will speak to domestic audiences. Both sides will shape the frame. But the real winner may be the player who never had to sell anything at all. China, the country that did not fight, the country that bought discounted energy, the country that deepened Russian dependence, the country that preserved Iranian loyalty, the country that watched American political will erode in real time, the country that understood that in the modern world, power is not only found in the aircraft carrier, the missile battery, or the battlefield. Power is found in the ability to read the system, to shape incentives, to let rivals spend themselves down, to collect when the table clears. That is the world we are looking at now. A world where wars are fought with drones and deepfakes, with oil prices and algorithms, with market reactions and midnight videos, with public exhaustion and political hesitation, with fake images that create real fear, with military victories that become media defeats, and with great powers that win by staying just far enough away from the explosion. So the next time Trump announces that the war is over, do not ask only whether the deal is real. Ask why he needs to keep saying it. Ask why Iran lets the uncertainty continue. Ask why the American public is growing tired. Ask why China is so quiet. Because the truth may be this: the war is not ending because one side won on the battlefield. The war is pausing because the battlefield that matters most has moved. It moved from the desert to the screen, from the aircraft carrier to the human mind, from the Strait of Hormuz to the political nervous system of the American public. And on that battlefield, the side with the biggest military budget does not always win. The side that controls perception does. That is the real war. And most people still do not even realize they are already inside it.